Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talks with Toe. This podcast is brought to you by a broke grad student, as usual. Science and freedom of speech. So today I have a very special guest, Dr. Iggy Trinh.
Thanks.
So Dr. Trinh and I have known each other for quite a while now, almost a year.
A year, right.
We went to Vietnam together. Dr. Trinh is here at Irvine Clinical Research and is also on the board of Alzheimer's in Haiti. Welcome, Dr. Trinh.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Very cool.
So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your story. Obviously, how you ended up in medicine and ultimately here at Irvine Region, Orange County.
Wow, that's a huge question. Well, I came here when I was 5, and I was one of the last kids who was rescued on an American helicopter during the Vietnam War. The war ended on April 30th, 1975, and I was just lucky enough to be rescued on April 29th, the day before. I remember just being at the Saigon airport. I remember the shooting and firing and mortars and gunshots all around us because it was the day before the end, so they were fighting kind of house to house. And I remember being at the airport. I was the oldest of 4 kids. And so I had my sister was 3 years old, my other sister was 2 years old, and my brother was 3 months old. And mom was with us at the time, grandma was with us at the time, dad was still working, wasn't around at that time. But it was a great day. It was in Saigon airport, and we saw in front of us these large black Chinook helicopters. The Chinook helicopters were like little pickled looking helicopters with 2 rotors. And so these large helicopters were just landing on the runway. The back of the helicopter would come down, and I just saw a lot of people running in to the helicopter, and the helicopter would take off, and another one would land. And it was super windy because we had no protection against the rotors, and it was super loud at the time. Just being 100 feet in front of a helicopter, just kind of landing and stuff. But I eventually, a Chinook helicopter landed in front of us. The back would go down, and we were told it was our time to run. And so I grabbed my sister's hand. She's 3, I was 5, and started running toward the helicopter. Mom had one sister, Hung, in one hand, and my brother in her other hand, who was 3 months old. And we all just ran toward this helicopter, which was loud and windy and all that. And we approached the back of the helicopter, and I remember on the right side was an American military guy with his helmet on and had a pistol, and there was 2 rows of seats. I remember running in and sitting on the left side, kind of told to buckle up, and sat down, buckled up. It was crazy times back then with the war, and I just remember that by the time I sat down and buckled up, I felt for the first time, I felt some hope. I just knew that this whole war experience for me, even as a kid, was coming to an end. So it was the first time I felt hope. And prior to all that, I kind of grew up like sleeping underneath our beds rather than on top of our beds. Because at night we would look out the window and there was flashes of light from the fighting in the war. And so we were always afraid that the roof would fall down. And so a lot of my experience was like sleeping underneath our bed at night. And I remember being interrogated by the Viet Cong, which was the guerrillas back then. that was an interesting experience. Just the fact that one of my uncles was a colonel in the South Vietnamese Navy SEALs. They call them frogmen back then. But anytime he would come and visit us and then leave, the Viet Cong would come because they have been monitoring for intelligence, right? So they would interrogate our whole family. I remember sitting on my bed, and there was a Viet Cong at the bedside asking me questions about Uncle. Like, where'd he come from? Where's he going? I was a 5-year-old kid, right? 4 or 5. I had no clue. But I was scared to death.
Yeah, understandably so.
Oh, yeah. I remember those experiences. I remember just running to bomb shelters when the sirens go off. I remember at night the Viet Cong would come out on the street and would just go and patrol. They do a lot of patrolling at night. During the day, you had no clue who's a good guy or who's a bad guy. Because during the day, everyone's a farmer or they're working. You had no clue. And at night, the guerrillas, the Viet Cong, would take up their arms and go and fight. It was very interesting. But you can hear them patrol outside your house at night. Hear them walk. So we would always go huddle at a room or something at night. And with those memories, when I sat in that helicopter and buckled up, I was like, wow, I get to leave all this. Yeah. And so I remember the helicopter kind of lifting off and the back would go up. And as it got higher, I saw the city of Saigon. And then as it got even higher, I saw the jungles. It was all green back in 1975. And then it went over the waters into the ocean. I had no clue where we were going. It was just going in the ocean, flying over the ocean. And it finally landed on an aircraft carrier called the USS Midway.
Yeah, the Midway.
Are you familiar?
Yep, I've been on the Midway.
So I was on the Midway
wow.
on April 29th, 1975, as a 5-year-old kid. Yeah, I was on the Midway, and I remember spending all afternoon standing on deck with other refugees and just watching the Vietnamese pilots in Vietnamese helicopters escaping the war because they knew it was coming to an end. So I just watched helicopters land. These Vietnamese helicopters would land on deck. Pilot gets off, their family gets off, and I stood there and watched a bunch of people push these helicopters overboard into the waters because there was no room for Vietnamese helicopters. So one after another, I was just standing there in front of me watching helicopters go overboard. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, being pushed over. I even remember this one large helicopter. I guess it was too large to land or something. They weren't allowed to land. And it was only maybe about 200-300 feet away from the aircraft carrier. And I remember this large helicopter hovering over the water. And then I saw the pilot jumped out of it.
Wow.
And started swimming toward us to escape. And I stood there and watched this helicopter just hovering and then crashing into the water and then sinking. That was an interesting experience back then as a kid. And then that evening, they put all the refugees onto a World War II landing craft. One of those amphibious the Private Ryan landing crafts.
Yeah, the ones from D-Day.
Yeah, D-Day. Yeah, I remember being there. Right, and with all the other refugees, we were squeezed in like sardines. And left the Midway in that assault ship, and we're just bobbing up and down the water. I had no clue where we're going. Right, and eventually we met up in the middle of the ocean with a transport ship, and I remember having to jump from the landing craft to the side of the transport ship and grabbing onto the ropes. They had these ropes going down the side because it was the only way to get up.
Yeah.
And I remember doing that. And then we had to wait for the waves to be just right for when the transport ship was close to the yeah, to our little thing. And once the waves kind of pushed both ships together, and then we jumped across. And I remember climbing up the ropes.
So your siblings were pretty young then. How did they manage to get up those ropes?
So babies were being tossed across.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That was the only way. There was folks on one side, trying to catch babies as they were being tossed across.
So your siblings were some of those babies being...
Yeah. My brother was 3 months old, right? And so the only way was they were tossing babies across, and people were catching them on the other side.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was a crazy day. We did that. And then I remember we slept on top of the deck of this transport ship. It seems like days to weeks maybe. We just slept on deck, and every day the best meal of the day was a plastic Ziploc bag with hot rice and tuna. That was like the best meal of the day, because that's when we had hot food, right?
Yeah.
There was probably canned tuna. I had no clue where it got from, but it was my favorite meal of the day. And so what happened was we landed. The transport ship dropped us off on the island of Guam. I don't know if you ever heard of that island.
Yeah, I have heard of Guam.
Yeah, so we lived on Guam. We lived in these half-dome military bunks that the soldiers lived in, and we weren't allowed to enter the U.S. unless we had a sponsor. And we were refugees. We had no sponsors. We had no luggage. We just had nothing, right? We just came empty-handed onto the island. And so we had lived on there probably what seems like a few months, hanging out on the island of Guam. And one day we were told we had a sponsor, and we had no clue who this was. So one day we were told we had a sponsor, and it turned out to be the church. And so there was a church somewhere by Seal Beach, and the folks inside the church were our sponsors. So we were super grateful. It was my first introduction to God. Because I grew up Buddhist, right? Mm-hmm. So I grew up going to Buddhist temple for my education. I was taught by the Buddhist monk. My uncle's a Buddhist monk. My grandma's a Buddhist nun. Mom's a Buddhist nun still, currently. And so my family tree's all Buddhist. Mm-hmm. Never knew about church or God or anything like that. But it was the church that sponsored us, that allowed us to enter the U.S. And so because we had a sponsor, they put us on a plane, and we flew to currently what was El Toro Air Base. Right now it's like the Great Park, right?
Right, it's the Great Park now.
It's the Great Park now, but before it was El Toro Air Base.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember when it was El Toro Air Base, where the planes landed, and they had helicopters and all that. It was the Marine Corps base. So we landed in El Toro Air Base. We got off the plane. They put us on this black bus and bussed us to Camp Pendleton, which is a Marine base, Marine Corps base in Oceanside. And if you remember at our TongueOut gala, right, the colonel who was in charge of creating Tent City, right, he was there speaking. So we lived in Tent City at Camp Pendleton at the time, and I remember living in the tents. I remember the snakes going by, right, just crawling around right next to our cots, and we slept in there, and we stayed in Camp Pendleton for quite some time, probably for a few months it seems. And then Dad met up with us at Camp Pendleton, so he kind of escaped on his own and made his way over, and we kind of met in Camp Pendleton. So that was a good reunion. We didn't know that he was there. He didn't know where we were at. So they had this big billboard in Camp Pendleton of like, find the other person. So we were putting down names, right? Looking for Hung Trin or looking for Young. And somehow, we met up with Dad.
That's crazy.
It's so crazy.
Just halfway across the world.
Halfway around the world. We met up with Dad. And we're so grateful. And so from Camp Pendleton, we lived there in these tents. We ate chows with the Marines for some time. And then with our sponsors' help, with the church's help, we moved out of Camp Pendleton. We moved to Long Beach, and we lived in a abandoned YWCA. If I remember right, I think it was like 4 or 5 stories high. It was kind of shuttered up. It was just our family and a Filipino family that lived there. And I didn't know if we were even there legally or not. I just knew we lived there. I was 5 years old. And so Dad went to pump gas. Yeah, that was his job. Somebody donated a bicycle to us, and so he biked me around all the time, and he biked us all around. But he went to pump gas. Mom stayed home and took four kids, from 5 years old to several months old. My brother, and that was kind of our start. From there, because I was 5, I didn't know any English, obviously, but from there I started kindergarten in Long Beach.
Wow, that's fun.
Knew no English, and that was that was kind of how we got started as Vietnamese refugees. Eventually we moved to Santa Ana, lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, all 6 of us actually, 4 kids, 2 parents, and we've always been in 2-bedroom apartments and homes until I graduated from med school. But throughout, grew up in Santa Ana, elementary school, junior high. I got into medicine back then. Santa Ana, the school we went to, wasn't the highest academically scored school. As a matter of fact, it was the lowest in Santa Ana, right? And because I came from a school that had really poor academic scores and minorities, there was a program there where it was a mentorship program where folks in the community would volunteer to be mentors to a disadvantage economically. And that was me, right? So I signed up and saying I would love to have, right?
Yeah.
And so my mentor was a physician.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his name was Rex Ailing, Dr. Rex Ailing. He was a pediatrician. And he was also at the time the Orange County Public Health Medical Director. Yeah, who's
for the entire county.
For the entire county. And so he just happened to, I had expressed some interest in maybe health or medicine as a career, and so they matched me up with him. And through Dr. Rex Ailing's mentorship, what that meant was every few months we just had a meal, right? and we talked about what I was doing, we talked about what he was doing, and then he was taking me to his meetings.
Wow.
Some of his meetings, I was tagging along as this high school kid. People were like looking, who's this kid, right? Hanging out with Dr. Ailing. And then I started volunteering at one of the local hospitals. I volunteered in the ER. I went through this ROP program for a summer and got my medical assistant certification as a medical assistant. I think I was like 16 years old at the time, and became a volunteer at the hospital in Garden Grove. Just took vital signs, right, blood pressure, stuff like that, and loved medicine as a result of that, and chose that as a career. Right after high school, I graduated high school on a Friday, and that Sunday I was in Marine Corps boot camp.
So what was that decision to join the Marine Corps? Where did that come from?
It just came from just really being appreciative of the veterans, because if it were not for our veterans, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Right? And I just had that appreciation for and respect for the military and for our veterans, and I decided I wanted to be a Marine. And so I was in boot camp, for 3 months right after high school. Down at MCRD, which is down in San Diego, Marine Corps Recruit Depot. and did that. Joined the Marine Reserves. Did the Marine Reserves for the entire 5 years at UC Irvine when I was undergrad there.
Wow.
And
do they still have that program at UC Irvine? Do you know?
For the reserves?
Yeah.
You can join the reserves without being at UC Irvine.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And that program's around. And as a matter of fact, that was what kind of paid my way through UC Irvine.
Mm.
So on the weekend, I would be running around with an M16, and during school, I would just study at UCI. Back then, and it was at UCI when it kind of solidified my interest in medicine. Took all the bio courses, and I actually came in as a physics major.
Really?
I did.
Well, you do need to know physics, right?
Yeah,
So.
I did. I came as a physics major, and enjoyed all that. Kind of bounced around a little bit, but yeah, from there I went to New York Medical School, and it's funny. My Christian faith developed during UC Irvine with InterVarsity.
Oh yeah, InterVarsity.
Yeah, I was with InterVarsity, small group Bible studies. Went to this Urbana missions conference.
Yep, I hear all about that. I've never been, but
yeah. We interesting story with Urbana. I had wanted to go, didn't have the funds to go. It was in Champaign, Illinois. Didn't have the funds to go, and I think it was like $340 to get there for the event, and that included transportation costs. It wasn't a plane. We were dirt broke. We took the Greyhound.
Wow. What is that? Must be like what years?
What it was,
Yeah.
whatever it was, we took the Greyhound. But I didn't have money. We prayed about it in small group and things of that sort. So I was studying the library, just hanging out in the library studying. Took breaks, walked away from my books, walked away from my cubicles, came back one day from one of my breaks, and there was an envelope with just cash in it. So, and I had no clue who donated it, but it was just enough for Urbana.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was like just enough for Urbana, and I had no clue. There was a statement saying this is from Jesus or whatever. Yeah, but that paid for my way to Urbana. So yeah, on the Greyhound bus and busted overnight. Overnight busted to Urbana and participated. It was a missions organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of missionaries came, but it was a life-changing event because since Urbana, I've always thought about missions work.
Yeah.
Right. As a matter of fact, when I was in med school, I was also a student at Calvary Chapel Bible College.
Really? At the same time? That's cool.
Yeah, correspondence courses.
Wow.
Yeah, correspondence courses, and between second and third year of med school, I was taking a course on it was the book of Romans about grace, right? Talking about it was all about God's grace and all that. I was really involved with church back in New York during med school. I was leading the youth groups. Doing Friday night Bible studies, conducting Bible studies for the youth groups and all that. That during second and third year of med school, during that summer, I was really this close to dropping out of med school to finish Bible college. Yeah, to go into full-time ministry. Super close to it because I was really enjoying what I was doing. With the church at the time, and it was fulfilling, right? Just serving. Until I realized I was already $80,000 in debt.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit of an eye opener.
Yeah, it was $40,000 a year for med school, right? Loans.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think ministry is gonna pay for this. I'm gonna finish med school. Yeah. So I finished med school. Yeah, so I finished med school and then came home to Loma Linda.
Okay.
And did residency in internal medicine, and then did some acupuncture certification at UCLA, and did some acupuncture work as and and then just went to Orange County to practice medicine.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
because my heart has always been in missions, it's why I started TongueOut.
Yeah, so I guess we can talk about that a little bit. I've
Yeah.
had the privilege of experiencing Vietnam with you.
Yeah.
And obviously Vietnam is dear and close to your heart.
Right.
But at what point did you come to that decision, I'm going to start this and get other people involved and just go back to Vietnam and give back?
Right. So when Hurricane Katrina hit, I don't know if you remember Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, I do. It was
2004, 2005.
It was all over the news.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was out in Mississippi, right? When
Yeah.
the dams went down and all that. I was practicing medicine. I've been in practice for probably 3 years, right? Just fresh grad. When Hurricane Katrina hit, I basically decided I want to do something. So I sent an email to a medical group, and we recruited 3 other people to go. And we went out there and we just volunteered, provided medical care. It was such an impactful event, just to watch folks who have lost everything from the floods, folks who are now living in tents or living in shelters, and who have literally lost everything. It's such an impactful event for me that I actually flew home, and then 3 months later I flew back. And this time I brought along 40 boxes of donations.
Wow.
Yeah, from our medical group. It was Bristol Park Medical Group at the time, and all the different offices were just chipping in donations. So we shipped 40 boxes of medical supplies and clothes and toys and shoes over to Hurricane Katrina area.
Yeah.
And then I flew back again. And since then, I have done medical missions work in Juarez, Mexico. Kind of like, I don't know, gangbanger land with the drugs and cartels and all that. We took teams out there, and we took a few. I even took my kids out when they were, I don't know. Jonathan, back in 2007, was maybe 9 years old. Lizzie was like 4 years old.
Yeah.
5 years old. I just took the entire family, and we did medical missions work there. I went back to Vietnam for the first time in 2010. And
what was that experience like? What were kind of the
it
emotions?
it was emotional. I went back to the home where I lived, and the home was subdivided now. It was and the other people living there. Went back and visited some family, but from 1975 all the way to 2010, that was my first time back.
Wow.
It was crazy. I went back with my family. We didn't do missions work. We were just back to visit family. And took the family back, took Dad back, kind of toured around. And I saw the needs there. And so in 2013, I came back and started doing medical missions. Originally, it was with you met Jerry Husan, right?
Yeah, Jerry.
Yeah, 7 Day Hero.
Great guy.
Yeah, great guy. So 2013, I came back with Jerry with 7 Day Hero, and it was just pop-up clinics, nothing planned. And then in 2014, I went back like 3 times to Vietnam because the need was so great. I just kept going back. And in 2014 was when I started TongueOut. Yeah, and I realized that we need to make more of an impact. So I just got organized.
Yeah.
And founded TongueOut. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. And we just folks were seeing what I was doing on Facebook.
Yeah,
right?
It's all on the internet.
It's all on the internet, 100%. We don't have an office. We don't have we don't have any real structure. We're just an organization that's on the cloud. That's all we are. So we have chat groups for Vietnam. We have chat groups for Haiti, chat groups for Peru, chat groups for every country. So we organize on the cloud, 100%.
It's great.
Yeah. Keeps costs down, right?
Check it
And
out.
yeah.
We might be having some technical difficulties. We'll see. I should say that this laptop is 2012.
Right. Nice. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I remember because I was in high school,
Right.
and my dad was like, well, you know, you're going to get to college, and by the time you get to college, you're going to need a laptop.
Yeah.
So he got me this laptop, and I've somehow kept it alive all these years.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, because I also grew up in a kind of environment where you don't waste anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if it's not broken, you don't throw
I
it
love
away.
it. I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started TongueOut in 2014. This year alone, we're 2019 now?
Yeah, 2019.
So this year in March, we were in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Eye surgeries for the blind, leprosy work,
Yeah.
medical clinics.
Yeah, we brought wheelchairs too, right?
Yeah, wheelchairs. We hit probably 4 or 5 orphanages. This year in March, we also, I don't know, March or July, I keep losing now. All the trips overlap. But we, we did, what else did we do? We did a well.
We did it well.
Yeah, we did a well in UC Irvine's name. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a well. So that was March. And then in May, we were in Haiti. In Haiti, we do pop-up medical clinics to the community. The Haiti medical clinic is quite different than Vietnam.
Yeah.
Haiti medical clinic, 400 to 500 patients a day.
Yeah.
It's typical. It's what we do there.
I've been to Haiti myself.
Right.
Back 2017.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we were in Chambron, which is just outside of Port-au-Prince.
Right.
But yeah, it's like
The needs.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's still crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's there's still no running water.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
In most places.
In most places, there's nothing in the ground.
There's not even electricity in a lot of places.
A lot of places, there's no electricity. That's right. So we were in Haiti in May, and then I came back to Vietnam in July. Took another team. July's team was so large, we broke it down to team 1, team 2. We had over 50 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Team 1, team 2. I was in team 1, and we brought a commercial water filter, a large water filter. We actually shipped it over. One of our partners here had worked in the water district, and really smart guy. His name's Mr. Yim, and he has patents on water.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he designed a commercial water system that doesn't require a lot of maintenance at all. So we built it here, the components. We shipped it to Vietnam. We put it together in Vietnam, and we brought it up the mountains. And it was pretty large. But it's able to provide drinking water for 1,500 people a day, which is pretty huge. So drinking water, not just for the elementary school where we placed it, but for the entire community.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was all the typical projects we did. And then we just got back from Peru. Yeah, Peru was wheelchair assembly and distribution at multiple locations. We partnered with Free Wheelchair Mission, which is another nonprofit.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of there's a senior design project at UC Irvine last year that was working with Free Wheelchair Mission.
No way. Yeah. So that's our partner in Peru, and built a whole bunch of wheelchairs, distributed and shared God's love, and then did some orphanage work.
Nice. So what are some of the differences in, I guess, needs in Peru compared to Vietnam?
Yes, Peru. Peru, you will find kids climbing trash heaps. So we had done some medical clinics right next to these areas that were just big, large, giant trash heaps. Peru's plumbing, big issue.
Hello.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I didn't
it's
know
okay.
you were recording. And
Yeah.
Here, doctor.
No worries.
Really wanted me to bring this box down for you.
Okay. And then
No worries.
That's okay. No problem.
That's what post editing is for.
Yeah.
Sorry.
and then with Peru, we've done a lot of work in the Amazon. So we see a lot of jungle medicine. We see a lot of jungle related medicine from the lack of healthcare there, from infections, stings and bites, poor water quality.
Yeah.
Because there's no wells or anything in the jungle area. So we do a lot of work in that area as well. Next month, November, we're taking a team to Oaxaca, Mexico. Yeah, so we'll be working with the farmers in the highlands of the Mexico, Oaxaca area, and do some work there. I think they have a week-long pastors' conference. Thousands of people converge in to this.
In Hawaii?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in this community, and so we hope to do some work there next month.
That's exciting.
And then that ends the year for TongueOut.
Yeah, it's been a busy year for TongueOut.
Yeah, and then it all starts up again.
I know, right?
Yeah, we already filled up our trip for Haiti in February next year.
That's great.
Yeah, most of our trips we never advertise because it's all internal. Part of the TongueOut's problem is trying to control growth. A lot of people want to be involved, but we're all volunteers.
Yeah.
And most of our trips are 90% TongueOut veterans who have been on prior trips. They just keep signing up for the next one.
Yeah.
And so once in a while we'll try to squeeze in someone new.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But next year, obviously, we have we UC Irvine in March, and then we have another trip for Vietnam in June. We're doing cleft lip surgery.
Oh yeah.
That's being set up right now in June. We just met up with the hospitals over there. And then July, we are toying around with the idea of India.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a week in India. We have some partners over there.
Yeah.
So we may pull the trigger on that if you're interested.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
yeah,
I'm always open to
right.
Doing missions and stuff, and it's
Yeah.
always a great experience. I get constantly trying to get my friends to
Yeah, right.
go with us at some point, but
Right.
Yeah.
It's just we love taking students along. Sometimes, well, most of our trips are like half students. 50% students is pretty normal for TongueOut. Usually it's high schoolers from like youth groups and different places. But sometimes we wonder if TongueOut is a medical organization that takes students, or if TongueOut is a youth group that takes doctors and nurses. Sometimes it can be confusing.
Yeah,
because it looks like a youth group with a number of students coming along. Yeah, so it's one or the other. But
Nice.
But yeah, that's next year. That's what we have kind of going on right now.
That's exciting.
We're also looking at maybe Africa as well, if we can pull it off.
Africa, yeah. Hey, you guys were talking about Chad, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I remember you guys mentioning that.
Yes, Chad is on the radar for possibly next year. Just got to find out some dates. And the thing with Chad is probably the airfare costs a little bit higher than other countries. So
yeah, airfare is usually the
limiting factor. Yeah,
it's always the limiting factor.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Although I will say that we are lucky, because I remember when I went back to China the first time.
Right.
It was probably back in 2000.
Yeah.
But the airfare back then was very expensive.
Really?
It was, I want to say round trip was around 3,000.
Ooh.
Yeah, because there just weren't as many planes in the world in general back then. So, but nowadays you can find flights to any part of Asia for around like 600, 700, depending on the country.
Yeah.
800 maybe for China, because that's a little bit more heavy traffic.
Yeah, it depends on the time of the year and the country and all that.
So, but
that's definitely
so prices have definitely dropped. It's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember it was incredibly expensive.
Right.
But
that's normally the limiting factor. We help our students out mainly because we have them just create GoFundMe pages. Right? I have a GoFundMe page right now from one of our students on my Facebook, and we just kind of share it, and then folks who folks would donate.
Yeah, a lot of like word of mouth stuff, right?
Yeah, all word of mouth.
So I wanted to ask you also about your work here at Irvine Clinical Research. What's that about? You're very big in, you know, educating the community. So what do you do for that?
So prior to Irvine Clinical Research, I was the medical director for Memorial Care at one of their facilities. I've been on the board and in the leadership part, and I had a full-time practice with probably at least 2,000 patients.
Wow.
And
that's a very full practice.
Yes, very full practice. And during the years where I was practicing full-time clinical medicine, outpatient medicine, I was really successful in lowering heart disease, lowering stroke, catching cancers early. I was sending people out for mammograms and colonoscopies and pap smears and all the preventive health stuff. We were doing really good and getting good outcomes. The only thing that I had no success over was that every time I made the diagnosis of Alzheimer's, it was a one-way road. There's no cure. There's no medications that work.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And I saw it in my own patients, right? And these were patients who have been with me for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Where 15 years ago, they were healthy, they drove in, had great conversations, chatting and all that. And then I saw the slow changes over time and made the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. And I saw them progress till they died. And then I ended up writing their death certificates, signing their death certificates. And it's an epidemic. Alzheimer's in Orange County is the number 3 cause of death, right behind heart attacks, which is number 1. Cancer is number 2. Alzheimer's is number 3. We have no cure. So in 2007, or even earlier, I was out of the country 6 times a year with TongueOut. And I was out of the country 6 times a year while running a full-time medical practice while being the medical director.
Right.
And it was like, okay.
A lot on your...
Yeah, right? And every time I was out of the country, I felt super, super guilty because my patients were waiting for me to come back. My doctors were waiting for me to come back. They had to cover my practice every time I was out, right? My staff was waiting for me to come back, and I was out so often doing missions work that I decided in 2017 to step down from my full-time practice and kind of retire from clinical medicine to focus on missions work. But along with that, I wanted to see if I can make a dent in Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I shifted over to Irvine Clinical Research. I'm the chief medical officer for the organization, and I'm also on the board for Alzheimer's Orange County. And so I kind of help in the leadership position to kind of guide with that. And my role, my hope now is that through clinical research, we can find that next treatment that actually works, or we can find a cure, or we can do something about prevention. And so I wanted to focus this current part of my life to trying to make a dent in Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And we do that with clinical research, and we do that with education. The education piece, I'm out in the community lecturing. Got 200 lectures this year.
Yeah,
on my schedule.
You're doing one at UC next week, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I just got a request for another talk at UCI at the University Club.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's a new building too.
Yeah. So I was asked to come out there and do another talk, but got to find a date. But anyway, education is so important because although there's no cure for Alzheimer's, there are things you can do to minimize your risk. And there's published data that shows, with exercise, you can minimize your risk between 30 to 50%.
Yeah, that's
for
a significant
Alzheimer's.
amount.
That's huge,
Yeah.
right? With simply exercise. And the word is not getting out. Folks don't know what they can do, right, to minimize their risk.
Yeah, I guess for our listeners who might not even know really what Alzheimer's actually is, like, I think a lot of people hear the word Alzheimer's, but
yeah,
they don't really know what
it's
the disease actually does to
so
people.
so the word dementia, right? The word dementia means memory loss. It's a big umbrella
Right.
that has a bunch of conditions under it. Alzheimer's take up 2/3 of that umbrella.
Wow.
Yeah. So 2 out of 3 patients with dementia have Alzheimer's. It's progressive memory loss. Not just memory loss, but there's personality changes that goes along with that. There's changes in the ability to do complex tasks like balancing the budget, writing a checkbook, driving, right? You lose all those capabilities. Your personality changes, and then you start to forget everything. In the beginning, it's just small little memory losses, like forgetting a name, forgetting a word, right? Walk to a room and wondering why you're there. Just small little things. But what happens is that over time, it progresses, where short-term memory gets eaten up chronologically, and there's a plaque that builds in the brains of patients with Alzheimer's. We call it beta amyloid.
Yeah, beta amyloid.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that builds up many causes of beta amyloid production. There's over 30 causes actually of amyloid production, and maybe that's why it's an epidemic. Right? You got so many things coming at you in addition to your genes.
Right. Yeah.
There's a number of genes that promotes Alzheimer's. Popular gene is ApoE4, and if you had one copy from one parent, your Alzheimer's risk is 25%. If you have 2 copies, right? That's heterozygous. If you have 2 copies, which is homozygous from both parents, that risk doubles to 50%. So yeah, and the scary thing is this. The scary thing is that 1 out of 4 Americans are walking around with this gene. That's the current statistics. 25% of our population has the Alzheimer's gene. And maybe that contributes to this epidemic as well, right? But genetics isn't everything.
Right.
Lifestyle plays a huge role. Lifestyle plays a bigger role than the genes. What we eat, what we don't eat, whether we exercise or not, how much sleep we get, whether we socialize or not, and the other medical conditions that we also have. Blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, all these other medical conditions actually increase the risk for Alzheimer's as well. So there's multifactorial risk factors, but there's a lot of things that we can do with our lifestyle to minimize our risk. So, which is why I'm big when I go out and give these lectures. I'm talking about prevention. I'm talking about things you can do to minimize your risk, right? And that's really my goal. And we can bring preventive type lifestyles and apply it early in our lives, then there's less worry about it later on.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of research, especially on the genetic side, which is kind of where I work, of how, yes, there are a lot of genes that we inherit, but there's a growing amount of evidence showing that, our lifestyle might actually affect which genes get turned on or off.
That's right.
Which genes might start interacting with each other, which is a huge unknown area in our research right now. Just figuring out how do multiple genes interact together to maybe increase your risk or maybe decrease your risk. And I think that's a very important area.
It's huge. It's a huge area that we need to learn more about. So I definitely appreciate what you do in that area.
I was actually talking to my professor about, maybe we can use some of what we've learned in our cancer research to hopefully at least improve the information that patients get about their risk, Because we do know there's some obvious risk factors, like you mentioned, like the single gene, but we've kind of shown that for things like cancer also, it's a little bit more complicated than I thought.
It is.
Those risk numbers can actually with the information that we have now, can be pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right, cancer is a lot more than genes because there's a lot of cellular processes involved, right?
right, yeah,
Which is why we've seen data that the ketogenic diet, right, has an effect on cancer when you starve the cancer sugar.
right,
Right, there's a lot of data on that, especially brain tumors and different types of tumors, that certain diets actually help slow down cancer growth and things of that sort. The process of autophagy, right? Autophagy is when the body kind of cleans itself out.
Yeah, it kills
right?
like I guess the bad cells, so to speak.
Yeah. Autophagy is like it's like the trash truck dropping by once a week to pick up trash.
Yeah.
Right. When autophagy works in our body, the trash truck in our body picks up the trash. It takes away old cells, damaged DNAs, right? Damaged cellular stuff is eaten up by autophagy.
Around,
Right. Autophagy cleans it up. And there's a direct connection between how well autophagy works and cancer as well. When autophagy works well, your cancer risk is lower because it's cleaning out stuff. And when autophagy doesn't work well, then you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Also, big connection with inflammation.
Yeah, inflammation's a huge one.
Yeah, huge role. I've been doing a lot of lectures on inflammation and how it's connected with cancer survival, how it's connected with chronic diseases. Just about most diseases in our body is one way or another linked to inflammation, including Alzheimer's. And most people don't realize it, but inflammation doesn't just come from an infection or an injury, right? Inflammation comes from our diet. There are foods that are pro-inflammatory.
Okay, so where are some of those foods that...
It's called the American diet.
Ah, yes, of
Right?
course.
Red meat is pro-inflammatory. And the reason red meat is pro-inflammatory is because the cow that we eat, right? The steak that we eat, if you're like me, where you like medium rare steak, right? Right? When we're eating a medium rare steak, we're not just eating a steak. We're eating what the cow ate, right? How do you know that the grass that the cow ate wasn't sprayed? Right? It doesn't tell you on the label, does it?
Right. Because how do you track that?
How do you track that, right? How do you know it wasn't sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, insecticides? How do you know that the cow wasn't pumped up with hormones? We pumped a lot of our cows up with hormones over their life because they grow faster, they get fatter, and we sell the cows by the pound, more profits. Right? So when you're eating this medium rare steak, it's not just a steak you're eating. You're eating hormones, right? You're eating pesticides, herbicides. We pumped a lot of our animals up with antibiotics because who wants a cow that gets sick and die, right? So throughout the life of our cow, we're pumping them up with antibiotics to keep them healthy. So when you're eating this medium rare steak, right, you got antibiotics on board, you got hormones on board, you got pesticides on board, chemicals on board, which is why steak's on the bad list. Because when you're digesting the steak, into the bloodstream is floating antibiotics, hormones, pesticides, and all that. What does the immune system do when it sees all this?
It tries to attack it.
It attacks it, right?
Yep.
And in the process of an immune system attack on things it doesn't like, what is created?
An inflammatory response.
Inflammation.
Yep.
Inflammation created, right?
Yep.
And it's just a one-time meal, no big deal, right? You create a little flare of inflammation, it goes away. But the problem is the American diet is
very heavily in these.
Very heavily. So what we have created, and sugar is a big culprit. Sugar is very pro-inflammatory. Fried foods is pro-inflammatory. Fast foods. And so really I'm talking about the American diet. The American diet is a pro-inflammatory diet. Inflammation is linked to chronic diseases, including Alzheimer's. So I give these lectures about that to bring some awareness on certain foods you can eat that will be anti-inflammatory to cool down inflammation and avoid the stuff that causes inflammation. That's prevention, right?
Right.
Prevention of chronic diseases, including Alzheimer's. That's what I do.
Nice. Yeah. That's great. Well, I want to respect your time.
Yeah.
We've had a pretty great discussion. Is there anything that you would like to tell the listeners? Maybe how they can support TongueOut, how they can at least get educated on ways to change their lifestyle?
Sure. If anyone's interested in supporting our missions work, you can just go to our website. It's TongueOut.org. It's all one word.
Okay.
If they're interested in going to one of my lectures on Facebook, they can go to the it's called the Healthy Brain Club.
Healthy Brain Club.
And that's us. And under Healthy Brain Club, just go to the events section, and all my lectures are there. They're open to the public. At least the public lectures are there.
Great.
With that. Yeah. And then anytime you want to learn about one specific topic, just let me know. I'll come back and talk.
Yeah, and maybe if you start up that podcast, we'll be sure to share that
with
our listeners.
That's right. Very cool.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Trinh.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Thanks for tuning into this podcast. Be sure to head over to iTunes, give us that 5-star rating. You can also find us on Spotify and Google Play. Talks with Toe is written and produced by Chris Toe. Dr. Dung Trinh is the Chief Medical Officer for Irvine Clinical Research and sits on the board for Orange County Alzheimer's. To find out more about his work and to support TongueOut, head out to TongueOut.org. Additionally, you can find him on Facebook at TongueOut Medical Team and the Healthy Brain Club. Music is by Purple Planet. You can visit their website at purple-planet.com.